Hello there, this is Dana from DanaArcuri.com, author, speaker, survivor, advocate, and certified trauma recovery coach. Thank you so much for joining today. If you are new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any new content. And if you are returning, welcome back. It's so good to have you here. Today is 10 signs that you have betrayal trauma. And so let's get started. What is betrayal trauma? According to verywellmind.com, they state, betrayal trauma describes the emotional impact a person experiences after their trust or well-being is violated, either by people or institutions that are significant in their life. The betrayal trauma was proposed in 1991 by Jennifer Fried. She is a psychologist, a researcher, a psychology professor, author, and educator. According to her theory, she says that someone may experience betrayal trauma when there are certain situations that are taking place. Here are a few examples. She states, when they're terrified for their physical safety or their life. So if you don't feel safe, it's really hard to heal. If you don't feel safe, if you're not safe, it just could put you in a vicious cycle of being in survival mode. Next, she states, they are betrayed by someone who they depend on for survival, such as a parent or a caregiver, whom they rely on for food, shelter, or other basic needs. So perhaps for you, betrayal trauma started in your early childhood. Or maybe for you, it began in your early childhood and then it just continued onward in your adulthood. This is very common. I guarantee you are not alone, my friends. The betrayal could be by your parent, a sibling, a relative, a teacher, a doctor, clergy, a friend, a partner, or a spouse. In some cases, the betrayal trauma is due to infidelity. Oh yes, you know what I'm talking about, that cheating spouse or that cheating partner. Oh my goodness, it really, really does cut like a knife when someone cheats on you, betrays you, and then they turn around and they blame shift, deny it, and suddenly they say that you're the perpetrator and they're the victim. It's total crazy making, but we know when we're dealing with things such as the toxic and family enmeshment, narcissistic abuse, sibling abuse, and any type of cheating and intimate relationships. This is something that many of us have experienced at least one time or more in our lives, and it can hurt like hell, people. It really can. You know, when we think of betrayal trauma, it's not by our enemies. When we think of someone who betrayed us, it is someone who was in our close circle, someone who we cared about, someone who we may have loved so deeply, and this person turned around, manipulated us, hurt us badly, and then they betrayed us. So this is a form of trauma as well as psychological abuse. Next, Jennifer had said in her information online that betrayal trauma has common links to very common experiences. And so it could be you experienced physical abuse, sexual abuse, sadistic childhood abuse. Now, I believe, this is just me cutting to the chase, I believe that narcissistic abuse and sibling abuse is another reason why some people have betrayal trauma. So betrayal, again, it's never by our enemies. It's not by a stranger. It will always be someone who we thought that we could trust. And then one day we awaken to the truth. We may have found out through the grapevine that either A, the cheating spouse got caught and you found out what happened, that they were cheating on you. It may have been your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, or in some cases, the betrayal trauma is directly linked to your dysfunctional family. The betrayal can cause a child to develop PTSD if the incident caused them intense fear. However, the child's brain essentially ignores the betrayal in order for them to maintain the relationship with their caregiver and effort to survive. Again, I call this survival mode. And we must know there's no healing happening when we're stuck in the vicious loop of survival mode. So let's cover a few other basics about betrayal trauma. Rejection, harsh judgments, shaming, criticisms, manipulation, gaslighting, harassment, and other toxic behaviors are also part of betrayal trauma. The trauma does overwhelm your nervous system. It is connected to toxic shame, and the toxic shame typically comes from the perpetrators. We have these vivid memories of the perpetrator. Now, for you, it could have been your parent, it could have been your sibling, it could have been the narcissist or some other perpetrator, or it could have been a close person within your circle. So for you, it might have been your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner, or family member. But any which way we look at it, it's a situation in which they dump toxic shame on us. They're so good at what they do. Cruelty is what they're good at, because they twist everything. Suddenly, they point the finger to us. They claim that we're the problem. In the meanwhile, they're the ones who lied to us, manipulated us, gaslit us, and continued betraying us over and over and over again. What makes betrayal trauma so painful is that the person who is betrayed may not be able to sever the relationship with the perpetrator. So we can understand not everyone can leave the toxic relationship, even abusive domestic violent relationships. Hey, no judgment here. Our safety is a top priority. So please know that your safety does come first. Seek help. Do what you need to do to stay safe. But at the end of the day, there are some people in certain situations, especially people who are minorities, women, children, and people who might have some form of dependency on another person. And it could be, you're married to a narcissist and you depend on them financially. Maybe they forced you to quit your job. There's so many different dynamics that come into play, but we will not judge anyone whether they stay or whether they go from the toxic, abusive relationship. So here are 10 signs that you have betrayal trauma. You may have been diagnosed with PTSD or complex PTSD. Now, the one thing I want to say, because this seems to be coming up a lot online and different times I watch videos or read books, there seems to be people who have confusion about the difference between complex PTSD versus regular PTSD. So when someone has PTSD, it is a one-time single event that leads to this diagnosis. Now, complex or compounded PTSD, that is when someone has habitual, repeated abuses and traumatic events. So, for example, if you were abused as a child and it happened for your entire childhood, so you may have suffered for like 18 years of your life. You may have suffered even beyond that timeline for decades and decades. Or maybe you were married to a narcissist. Maybe it was your boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe they abused you. So anyway, which way we look at it, if someone has repeated, habitual, long-lasting betrayal trauma, abuse, violence going on in their lives, there is a good chance that it is complex PTSD because it was more than a single one-time event. So let's move forward to number 2. 10 signs you have betrayal trauma. So you may struggle with depression, anxiety, emotional dysregulation, or panic attacks. Number 3, you can have trouble concentrating. You might have confusion or you may have disassociation. Number 4, You can have difficulty trusting people. As I said in other videos, this is very typical that anyone who had been abused, especially habitually, by a narcissist, by the sibling, by a vicious perpetrator or someone who's domestically violent, you may have gone through such horrible situations of people lying to you, deceiving you, gaslighting and manipulating you, that now you're super challenged when it comes to trusting anyone new or even someone old in your life. Again, I don't really think that your problem is so much like this major trust issue. The problem is the people betrayed you. People who you loved, who you cared for, who you may have spent a lifetime creating different memories with, now have destroyed you and your life and your trust because they are pathological liars. Next is number 5. So you may have chronic pain, GI distress, migraines, fatigue, and so forth. Number 6, you may struggle with nightmares and or insomnia. If so, please watch the video that I just posted prior to this one because it covers all the things to do with narcissistic nightmares, bad dreams, and so forth. Check it out, my friends. Next is number 7. You can have suicidal ideation or various suicidal thoughts. Number 8, you may have an eating disorder, addictions, or self-destructive patterns. Number 9, you may have betrayal trauma if you may experience hypervigilance or paranoia. Number 10, you may suffer a low self-worth. You may suffer with anger. You may feel numb. You may feel guilt. I always tell people, the guilt doesn't belong to you. Give it back to the perpetrator. They are the ones who should feel guilty for what they did to you. They betrayed you. They aimed to hurt you, and boy, oh boy, did they do so. They should feel ashamed and guilty for their terrible demonic actions, behaviors, and words. Next, an effort to heal from betrayal trauma. Understand that it's essential to process this type of betrayal. It is normal if you ever feel triggered, if you have flashbacks, if you have bad memories, if different things come up for you in your conscious mind. It is all valid. Next is the first step is to come to terms with acceptance. Okay, so you are not responsible for what took place, but you are responsible for your healing journey. So this doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt to be betrayed because, like I said, it does cut like a knife. Oh, yes, it does sting. No, it doesn't feel good when someone tramples all over our boundaries and they turn around, hurt us, and betray us. But acceptance is a huge part of the grief process, the trauma work process, doing the healing work. So it all goes hand in hand. Understand that you are not to blame for what took place. Only the perpetrators are held accountable for their actions, words, and cruel behaviors. So recognize your painful emotions. It's super helpful to really connect to your true self, build awareness, and acknowledge how you feel. Essentially, we feel it to heal it, and this goes hand in hand with the book, The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. Seek emotional support by a trauma-informed mental health professional who understands narcissistic abuse, sibling abuse, toxic family enmeshment, and everything that goes hand in hand with the trauma recovery. Next, explore somatic embodiment and holistic modalities that are tools to help support you along your healing journey. If you yourself have dealt with this type of betrayal trauma, narcissistic abuse, sibling abuse, or what have you, feel free to reach out to connect with me and work with me as a certified trauma recovery coach. Have you experienced betrayal trauma? Do any of these symptoms and the different signs resonate with you? If so, share down below. Let's keep the comments going. Like this video subscribe to my channel, and reach out to me at dana@curie.com. Thank you and have a blessed day.